Hey guys, Jen here. Welcome to live stream part 1 of 3 that I'm doing on the manifestation process explained in detail. So we're not just going to be going ask, believe, receive. You get what you want when you ask, believe, receive. No, you don't actually, because there's a whole lot more to it. So over the next 3 days, I'm going to be going in depth on each step in the process. So ask, believe, receive. Today we're going to talk about ask, the specific detail of it. So as I talked about in the video from yesterday, if you haven't checked that one out yet, the idea of ask, believe, receive is bullshit in the sense of like, there's so much more to it than that. So if you haven't watched that soapbox video, definitely check that one out. It's on my page here. But I wanted to just do a deep dive into each step because as I said in the video yesterday, there are micro steps within each of the bigger steps in the manifestation process. So it's not just like ask, okay, I'm gonna ask for what I want. I want $1 million. Yay, I asked, I get to have it now. No, actually it's not that simple. So I'm gonna explain how to ask properly, how to ask in a way that actually is gonna work for you so that you actually can start to move in the direction of receiving the thing that you're asking for. So very first thing with ask is clarity, okay? So you have to be super clear on what it is you want. If you're not sure, right? So a lot of times we think we know what we want, but then we might get it and go, oh shit, that's not what I actually wanted. So the question here is, are you clear on what you actually want? If you're not, that's okay. One way to get clear is to look at the contrast, right? So look at what do I have in that area that I don't want? What is it that's sort of just the opposite of what I would desire? And as you look at that, you know what's the opposite, right? So whatever the opposite is going to be the thing you actually want. So contrast is not a bad thing. I honestly believe contrast is a good thing because it gives us clarity, and you have to have clarity to ask for what you actually want and get it. So I got my hair just like in my mouth right now. So you have to have clarity. You have to just be very sure this is what I want. Now that doesn't mean you can't change your mind. Of course you can. You can change your mind 1,000,000 times if you want to. That is your prerogative. But you have to be clear on what it is you're going to ask for in order to actually ask for it. That is the first step. But there's more to it than just being clear. So you have to be clear, yes. But there's another micro step in all of this. And that is when you're asking for whatever it is you want, do you go general or are you going to be specific? That is a big, big deal. Because sometimes you think you want something and you ask for it and then you don't get it and you're like, but why didn't I get it? I asked for it. I said I wanted it and I asked for it. Why didn't I get it? And a lot of the reason is because you asked for something that was too specific for where you were in that moment. And I'm gonna explain what that means. So like I said, I'm separating all of these steps in the process, but they all go together. So I'm gonna talk now about belief stuff, which is obviously part of step 2, which is believe. But the reason it's part of step 1 is because it's gonna help you decide, are you gonna go general or specific? So like I said, each day I'm gonna talk about the steps, but they are going to go together because it is a process. So it's not like the steps can be really pulled out by themselves, but hopefully you're gonna start to see how, yeah, this is gonna help me to ask more. So the way you know whether to go general or specific with your ask is where's your level of belief and faith that you could actually receive that thing. So the example I always like to use is a luxury car, right? Because how many people want a luxury car? Tons of people. They're like, I want a luxury vehicle, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so whether you're gonna go specific with that ask, whether you're gonna say, I want a Mercedes G64 that's blue, that has blah, blah, blah features, are you gonna go that specific? Or are you just gonna say, I want a luxury car? Now, obviously, you have to know what you want, right? So this is not about saying like, oh, I'm just gonna ask for a luxury car and I'm just gonna get some random luxury car. Your higher self, the universe, it knows what your preferences are. It knows what you desire to have. You've made that clear many, many times, whether you didn't actually say the words, but you've made it clear in the way you've lived your life and the things that you've chosen, etc. So your higher self knows you. The universe knows you. It knows what you want. So you can still be general with something and get what you're asking for, because sometimes being specific causes resistance. And that is an issue because with resistance, you basically block yourself from receiving. So it's literally like you're doing this. I really want this thing. I really, really want this thing. I really, 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 really want this thing, but I can't seem to get it for some reason. I don't know why I can't get it. That's what you do. You don't want to do that. So your belief level is going to be playing a part in your ask and whether you're going to ask for something general or specific. Now this works really well with money too. So like a lot of people are like, I want to make $1 million. But most people cannot get their belief around $1 million. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get $1 million. Of course you can. There's millions of people out there, billions of people out there who have millions of dollars. It is possible. But you have to have your level of belief in the place to be able to ask for it and actually receive it. So if you're like, I would love $1 million, that would be freaking amazing. But you're really not in that place right now where you're like, I could believe fully that $1 million could show up for me. I absolutely believe that. Now, if you do, if you're in that place, then please, by all means, ask for the $1 million because you're actually going to be in a position to get it. But if you're like, I don't really know if I don't know if I can believe that. I don't know if that's something that I can really buy into. Then you want to go general, because the being specific, asking for $1 million is going to be a block. It's going to literally do this, like we said. We don't want to do that. We want to be like this. I'm completely open to receiving the things I'm asking for. We don't want to be half asking and half blocking. That is not good. So in that case, you're going to go more general, and you're just going to say, I want financial abundance. That's it. Now, I know that seems like, oh, but if I ask for that, like, what if I get $10? What if I get $30? Like, that's not, and this is another thing that people kind of do with law of attraction, is they think like, oh, I have to be super specific and I need to include every little freaking detail, because if I don't, I might forget something and the universe will just bring me something that's not really what I want. No. Again, your higher self, the universe, it knows your preferences. It knows what you desire. It is not going to bring you something that is like in complete, just disastrous opposition to what you're asking for, unless, of course, you're putting energy out there that is in direct opposition, right? And then in that case, you're just going to attract whatever it is you're putting out. But if you've asked for something and you've done it in a way where your belief is at that level, so you're either asking generally or asking specifically, the universe knows your preference. So the universe is not going to send you $30 and think that's enough. The universe knows what the word abundance means. It knows how you feel about the word abundance, what you think about it, what it would mean to you. It knows all of that stuff. So you don't have to worry about, I have to ask specifically for a certain amount of money. I have to say, I need $5,432. No, you don't have to do that. Unless your belief is in the place where you can do that, right? So you can ask for it and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna ask for $5,000 this week because I absolutely believe that $5,000 can come in like that and I'm not worried. If your belief is at that place, great, ask specifically, because then you can. Your belief is at the level where you're gonna align with it. But if you're like, no, I'm a brand new business owner, or I've only been doing this for a few months or something, and $5,000 in a month feels like a huge leap to you, then don't be specific about it. Just say, I wanna have a 4-figure month. I wanna have a 5-figure month. That's what I'm asking for this month. I'm gonna have that. So you're being general, right? I know, it can be scary. Oh my God, if I'm general, I might not get what I want. But I promise you, the being too specific when you're not in the belief place is just gonna block it. So you're better going general and, let's say, manifesting $4,000 than asking for $5 and getting $5 or something. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be specific unless your belief is there to support you being specific. So here's another example for you, car example. So I have always wanted a Jeep Wrangler, right? Like the dream Jeep Wrangler, the one that I always saw myself having. So it's like fully loaded, it's brand new, it's the color that I want, like the blue, the exact shade of blue that I imagine. Is all of these things, right? It's gonna be hard top, soft top, like all these things. And I know the Jeep I want. I've priced it out many times. It's, $40,000, $45,000, $50,000 Jeep. So this year I was like, I need a new car. Like my car that I've had for a few years now, it was my grandfather's. I actually got it for free a few years ago. I manifested a free car, which was crazy. I had it for a couple years. It did its job, but it was like falling apart. I'm talking like every light was on. It was just rusting out. It was terrible. And I found out that it was not going to pass New York State inspection for me to be able to continue to drive it. So I was either going to have to put like $1,500 into fixing it, which again, it was falling apart and it was like 12 years old. So it really wasn't worth continuing to put money into it. So I was like, okay, well, obviously I need to get a car. And so at that point I was like, okay, so do I just buy any old car that I can find, or is this the opportunity for me to manifest a Jeep? Now, when I made that decision where I was like, okay, yeah, I feel like it's time for my Jeep. I feel like it's time for me to drive a Jeep. I was not at the level of belief that I could have asked for that Wrangler that I dream of having. I was not there believing that I could do it, because at that moment, I knew what my credit score was. I knew how much money I had to put down. I knew what it cost to have the Wrangler that I wanted, and my belief was not in the place to believe that I could have it. And so instead of saying, I'm gonna manifest a 2-door Jeep Wrangler that's blue, that's fully loaded, blah, 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 I said, no, I'm asking for a Jeep. I'm going to manifest a Jeep. That was what I decided. I was being general. Now, obviously, a Jeep is specific in the sense of it's a specific brand. I was able to have my belief at the level that I knew I would be able to buy a Jeep of some kind. I didn't know which one. I didn't have the full belief that it could have been the Dream Wrangler, but I just knew I'm going to ask for a Jeep. So that for me was general in the sense of I didn't go specific with the type of Jeep. It was just like, I'm going to manifest a Jeep. So I ended up, like, someone that I know sent me a link. They were like, hey, I found this Jeep at this car dealership, blah, blah, blah. You know, you should check it out. It's a really good deal, and car's in really good shape. So I was like, all right. So my friend knew I was looking for a Jeep. So I went and looked at it, and I was like, yeah, this is in great shape. It's amazing. Like, I'm really excited. I think that this is definitely a Jeep I would want to drive. I really, really like this car. And then we went through like the paperwork and all this stuff, and they did the numbers and they sent everything back to me, and there was just something off about it. Like, it just felt fishy to me. I was like, there's something about this doesn't feel right. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if they're fudging the numbers. I don't know if there's just something else going on, but it just didn't feel good to me. I was like, I don't really want to commit to paying that much money every month for 5 years, which is what the loan was going to be for. I was like, this doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel right. Now, a lot of people would have just ignored that, right? And been like, no, I said I was buying a Jeep. This Jeep is here. It's available to me. They're giving me the loan. I'm willing, they're willing to give me a loan. So I'm just going to go with it, right? But I was like, no, this doesn't feel right. I don't want to do this. Like this, I don't think this is my Jeep. I just didn't think it was. Even though it was one that I would have loved. I would have enjoyed driving it. It was in beautiful condition. I mean, beautiful condition. It looked almost brand new for how, the fact that it was several years old. I just knew, like, this isn't it. It just didn't feel right. And so I just trusted that. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to push this. This deal is not going to work for me. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep looking. And I just stayed open. I was like, no, I know I'm going to manifest a Jeep. I know I'm going to do it before the end of the month because I had a deadline. My car was not going to pass inspection, and my inspection was up in the month of February. So I knew, like, I only had a certain amount of time and I had to get a car. So I was like, all right, that's not the Jeep. I don't care. Like, I'm going to trust that I was general, asked for what I wanted, but in a general way where it's available to me, and I just trust that. And so I said, no, that's not it. And then I remembered that a few weeks back I had talked to this guy at a car place, and he said, if you ever see anything on our website that you really like, give me a call. And if it's something that I feel like, yeah, that's a good vehicle, I really think, like, I'd be willing to sell that, meaning, like, I feel good about the vehicle, and he's actually willing to stand behind it, because obviously it's a used car. So, there are obviously going to be issues with used cars. That's just how it is. So I was like, okay, yeah. So I looked on their website. I found a Jeep on there. I was like, whoa, like, that wasn't on there a couple of weeks ago when I was looking at stuff. Like, that wasn't even on there. Saw a Jeep. It was the same year as the one I had just seen that I didn't want to do. I was like, that didn't feel right. Same year, in beautiful condition. Went and looked at it that day, put the deposit down. Within a couple, like, 3-4 days, I had gotten all the paperwork together, done all the stuff that needed to be done, and I ended up manifesting the Jeep, right? So it actually became my Jeep. So now I drive a 2012 Jeep Liberty. Now, if I had said back in February that I was going to manifest a Jeep Wrangler, 2-door, this, that, and the other, it wouldn't have happened. And I would have ended up probably fixing my car because I wouldn't have had any other option, because I would have had to pass inspection or have no vehicle. So the reason that I didn't go specific was because I knew that being specific was going to be a block to me receiving the Jeep, and I didn't have a lot of time. I only had a few weeks, and I had to make a decision, and I had to get a car. So it was like, okay, I have to just do general. I have to say a Jeep in general, because if I go specific, it's going to be a block. It's going to be a receiving block, and I knew that. So my ask was general. I want a Jeep. And so now I have a Jeep. I have a 2012 Jeep Liberty. I'm absolutely in love with it. It is one of my absolute favorite cars I've ever owned. In fact, I love it so much, I'm even considering, like, why would I even want to go and get a Wrangler at some point? Like, I just really love this Jeep. Now, obviously, someday I'll get a Wrangler because that's my dream car. But right now, I'm like, I'm good. I'm feeling so good. Like, I love this car. I'm really excited about it. But again, sorry, someone just called me. The ask was general because my belief was not at the level to be specific. So when it comes to asking, you have to decide that for yourself. Where's my level of belief? And be really honest with yourself. This is the key thing here, because if you're not honest with yourself, if you're like, oh yeah, I could totally believe I'll manifest $1 million this month, but you're really not in that place, you're just like trying to make yourself be in that place, it's going to become a receiving block. You are not going to receive the money. So you have to be in that place of, I believe this, I know that this is right, I know that this is mine. And then when you move to the next step of the process, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, you actually have the belief to make it happen. Whereas if you're like asking for things that you don't have the belief for, it's gonna be very unlikely that you're gonna get it. So you have to just ask yourself and be honest. Do I wanna go general with this ask, or do I wanna be specific? And you get to decide based on how it feels to you. Never ever manifest things or try to manifest things that don't feel good to you. If you're like, yeah, I wanna ask for blah, blah, blah thing, and you're just like, either like, let's say, you really want this other thing, but you're like, I don't think I can have that, so I'm just gonna go for something else. Like I was given the example of the luxury car. Like a lot of people want a luxury car, but not everybody could get their belief around a specific vehicle, right? They couldn't get their belief around, I'm gonna manifest a, Mercedes G65 or G64, which I absolutely love. I would love to have one of those one day. But I know what those cost, and I know where I'm at in my life, and I just know that I could not get my belief behind that I could manifest that vehicle. But I could get my belief behind manifesting a luxury car, in which case, like, that could be any luxury car, and it would just be whatever one felt good to me, and I would be open to receiving any of them, right? Any of the luxury brands would be fantastic because I'm not being picky about it. I don't really have a specific ask. But again, it's about what is true for you. So if you're like, no, there is not a single car in the world that I know that I would want besides this Mercedes G64. Well, then in that case, if you're like, yeah, I'm there, I believe it, I know I get to have it, like whatever, then you can ask specifically because your belief is gonna be there and you're not gonna have to worry and stuff. So what happens when you ask for something that your belief isn't behind, you start to doubt, you start to worry, fear, you start to freak out, you start to look around in the physical senses and go, it's not working, it's not working, it's not gonna happen, it's not working. That is just blocking the receiving. So you have to ask either general or specific based on where your belief level is. And this is true for anything, right? No matter what it is you're asking for. The other thing is keeping in mind that the more specific you get, the more you create less possibility, okay? So like, let's say, for example, you want a boyfriend, right? So let's say you want to manifest a boyfriend, and there's this one guy that you've maybe been talking to for a few years, or, you have known for a long time, or you've really like had a crush on him or been into him or whatever. And you're like, yes, I want to date him. I want him to be my boyfriend. Like, that's the person that I want to be with. Well, now you've just been very specific to the point of that other person's behavior is going to be a deciding factor of whether or not you get what you want. That's kind of a problem, right? Because we don't get to choose what other people do. We don't get to decide other people's behaviors, and we can't change the way someone else is. So rather than being like, putting all your eggs in the basket of it has to be this one specific person or this guy or whatever, it's no. In general, what do you want in a relationship, right? In general, you want this kind of a guy, you want this kind of a relationship. I want to be able to, have a guy who's I'm super attracted to and who communicates really well and who shows up when he says he's going to and who tells the truth and blah, blah, blah. All of these in general things that you want, ask for that. And what's going to happen is you've now created way more possibility for yourself, because now you're asking in a general sense that the universe has more possibility to bring something to you, versus if you're asking for something so specific, you just collapsed all the other possibility. And it's literally like, okay, well, if it's this one person or nothing, then you're basically stuck now unless this one person makes a decision that aligns with what you also want. So being general is not a bad thing. Being general is a way to get what you actually want without having to play around with the how. When you start to get more specific around something, you kind of feel more like the how is up to you. And it's not. It's never up to you. And you can ask for specific things, like I've been saying. But your belief level has to be there, and you also want to make sure there's enough possibility in the ask. Because, again, if you're asking for a specific person, then the behavior of that person is based on what they decide and not what you decide. So that's going to be a problem, because now you're saying, oh, I can never have the love that I want if it's not from this person. And so now you've literally just taken away that possibility for yourself. Whereas you could go, oh, I just want to have the most amazing connection with somebody and be so in love and be totally attracted to them and be blah, blah, blah. That's in general. Now the universe has way more possibility and way more options to send to you, versus you being very specific about this one thing, and now suddenly it's like, that's the only option. That makes a lot more work for the universe, and sometimes that also means you're not actually going to get it, because sometimes, like in certain situations, like with a certain person or something like that, a certain job, etc., that may not be the best thing for you. That may not be the most aligned thing for you. So it just isn't going to happen. So you have to be more general. And when you're general, then you allow for more possibility. So that is the in-depth look at ask, right? So it's not just about asking for something, as you can see. And I think I've been going here for like probably 15, 20 minutes, I would guess. I can't see the time, but I'm assuming it's been about that. So as you can see, just using the step ask is not going to be enough. You have to be clear on what it is you want, and then you have to know, do I go general or specific based on your level of belief and based on the possibility and the amount of opportunities and different options that are out there. So it's always going to be based on what feels good to you. So always start there. What feels good to me? Connect in with yourself. Get to that place where you kind of just tune in and go, yes, okay. Would it feel good to me to ask for this specific thing? Feel it out. Would it feel good to me to ask for it in general? Feel it out. Maybe there's an in-between ask, right? So maybe you ask for a Mercedes, but you don't pick the specific one. You just say, I want a Mercedes. You're being a little specific, but you're still leaving room for opportunity, for possibility, for options, versus to say, I want a Mercedes G64. Now you're being very specific and narrow, which again, is okay sometimes, but other times it becomes this just block to receiving. So that is how you know how to ask and what ask works best for you. So let me know if you have questions about this. I would love to hear what comes up for you as you listen to this video. So pop that in the comments below. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about the second step in the manifestation process, which is believe. So get excited for that because we have a lot to cover. There's a whole lot more in belief than any of the other steps here. So yeah, bring your notebook, get ready to take some notes because we got some stuff to cover. But until then, just work on thinking about what it is you want. Think about whether you want to be specific or general, and go from there. So that is it for today. And if you want to practice this process, if you want to actually take some time to focus on something for 30 days and manifest it and practice, do the different processes and just have some fun seeing what you can make happen, then be sure to check out my upcoming workshop, The Manifestation Experiment. It starts August 1st, and you can go to jenniferblanchard.net/manifestation experiment to check it out. That is it for today. I will see you guys tomorrow for part 2 of this series. And until then, remember, feeling good is the point and the path.